What's up, guys? So, welcome to part 4. You've made it this far. Congratulations. Um, the big keynotes in part 4, not to jump too far ahead, is I focus a lot on contrast in this part. Now that I've gotten a lot of the areas built up that I want, and enough focus on the areas that they're not drastically important, but they're there. Like I have the staff blocked in a bit, and the hand and the arm are blocked in. And right now I'm just working back through everything, and I'm popping a little bit more contrast on things. I'm bringing things up in value slightly. Things that I didn't give enough attention to in the past because I was really focused on like the crown, the main skull, the armor, the chest, and then the belt and the other skulls and the front of the shirt. So that's basically what I'm focusing on now. Is I'm trying to build up a better level of contrast because I've kind of blown things out slightly, and I want to dial it all back. But it's also that fine balance of how much do I dial it back. Usually when I'm painting this, or anything for that matter, I have OBS up on my left monitor, which is I know for a lot of artists they'll just flip the canvas and it'll help give them a better idea of like the problem areas, or maybe what they haven't seen before, just because they've been staring at the same thing for quite some time throughout the painting session. So they flip the canvas. I just use OBS because it's a more zoomed out version of the piece. So that's how I kind of associate with what I need to adjust. So I do that a lot in this part, especially. Decided to, again, going back for the whole contrast thing, the background colors weren't drastic enough and they didn't provide enough contrast. There wasn't that contrast being your dark darks and your light lights. So I'm going back through and I'm working all that in to make this piece stand out, to make this character stand out. So that way the lighting makes sense and the atmosphere of the piece comes through a bit more, because before it was just kind of a mishmash of blocked in values just to give me just a building block, so to speak, I guess, to work from there, which is normally how I approach things and how things happen. Takes me a couple takes me a couple like passes on the piece before I really start to mess with the background to give it that full atmospheric feel and presence that I want the piece to have. Excuse me. So yeah, basically blocked in the background, and I'm working through the staff to give the staff a little more love because I've kind of neglected it for the last 3 painting sessions. So just putting value through there. Trying to think of what the other main focus was on. I think the crown was another one, if I'm not mistaken. During this point, I still wasn't very happy with it. I struggled without the crown through most of this piece. It's just one of those things where I've never painted a crown, and I wasn't really sure how I wanted, if I wanted there to be like a fancy engraving on it, or if I wanted it to be more simple-esque, if that makes sense. So I was having a bit of a struggle trying to decide how I wanted to approach it. So that's why the crown got repainted so much, and even gets painted again later in this. I adjusted a bunch. But it's also trying to dial back some of the values on the top of the head and the crown, because I noticed at one point in the painting that some of the values were they were a bit too high, and the light source providing wouldn't really necessarily make sense for a value to be that high from that direction. So that was basically the adjustment there, or adjustments to come. And now it's just more or less bouncing around the piece again, giving a little bit more love to certain areas. I noticed I didn't put a collarbone on the character, so that's kind of what I'm working back through right there a second ago. And then I'm like, you know what, well, I was happy with where the chest was, and I'm happy with where most everything else is. Let's mess around and bring up the value on the armor and the staff, because I definitely think I work back through the staff in this section again. But I think, from what I'm seeing now, I'm glad that I didn't continue to pursue this much. Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure how fast I'd get to it. Yeah, I was bringing the armor up too much in value, and it was gonna start to distract from the rest of the piece, and it was gonna start to not make sense from the directional lighting. So I'm glad that I brought that down a little bit right there before I started moving on to the staff and the arm and the hand. So yeah, I'm just painting through the fingers, trying to make them a little more established, make them look more like fingers for the most part, and trying to soften some of these edges before I get too invested in either focusing on noodling around the hand or the staff. So it's just building up these lights. I knew I wanted a light to shine on the thumb and the upper part of the staff and part of the arm, and then the first 2 fingers. So that was what I was establishing through there, and then just bouncing back around to these other sections after I've given a little bit of attention to the areas that I was just working on. It's always a good habit, as I say throughout this entire series, do not focus on one area for too long. Always move around the piece, because you're always going to see something new when you move back to the area you were just working on, and it's incredibly important to do that, because a lot of people become hyper focused and then they end up bringing a piece up to polish in one spot and it's completely nowhere near that level of finish in another spot, and then you have to spend the rest of the session trying to bring everything else up equally, or decide if you've brought something up too far in polish and appearance that you now need to dial it down, which I do actually do in this piece. I think it's in this painting session that I realized after I finished painting for the day that I needed to go back through the piece. And the next part, I believe it is, I do a lot of repainting, so I'm excited to share that with you guys. This is me just kind of working back through the skull again. I wasn't fully, I wasn't in full send mode for this skull design on the shoulder plates. I really liked the idea at first, but then the more I painted away at it here throughout this sitting, I realized that it just it wasn't very cohesive with, there's no attachment points, you don't see any visible accessories holding them to this belt, so I just felt like it wasn't as believable. So I did enjoy painting the skulls, and they were fun, and I was trying those different approaches, like adjusting the perspective of them and whatnot, but in the end, they didn't sit well with me because they felt more forced, and it felt almost too cluttered for my liking. And I want to make sure that everything that I paint it's got a presence, and it's not overly cluttered, and it makes sense. I mean, obviously, this is just made up, this doesn't exist, but I still want it to be plausible. I mean, when you paint something to a belt, you're like, okay, well, in my head, what's holding it to that belt? Is it a chain? Is it a piece of rope? And is it another piece of leather? And when you can't really show that, I feel like whatever it is you're painting loses a little bit of believability because of it. So that was, I have a lot of fun painting through the skulls, and I spend quite a bit of time doing this, painting through this section, and along while painting through this section, kind of bouncing around other sections that kind of pop out a bit more for me since I wasn't looking at them. Like working through the armor right now, trying to just work out some of the jaggedness of it and refine it a little bit, and maybe establish a little bit more light, since that's a direction, the edge of the armor is a direction where the light source is coming from. And then I decided to bounce back to the skulls, taking a nice long break there. But yeah, I wasn't fully set on the skulls, honestly. I wish I could sit here and explain more things that I'm doing, but really it's just like kind of working back through the piece and establishing and like tweaking things that I established already that I was uneasy about, or I wasn't really sure if I wanted the direction to go in that, if I wanted to go in that direction. But like working back through the armor, I was really, really happy with how I worked through the hand, looking back at this. That was a really good move. And then working back through the staff, I don't know if I give the staff a lot of love right now. It appears so. I'm not sure. I think I'm working back through the staff, trying to get a little bit of love. But yeah, just working all the way around the piece, really. This is just the theme of how I function. I know, I'm sure other artists do too, but I just don't ever get caught up in one spot. And yeah, I think the reference is in the way, and I wanted to adjust the background a little bit. I wanted to pop in some of these like weird kind of lighter values to just give the background a little more texture and lighting. Oh yeah, and then I start working back through the hand. Look at that. So yeah, I just like bring a lot of the stuff that I kind of left behind up a little bit and polish and just build, and then moving forward from there and bouncing around the piece. I will say, if I could go back and adjust some things, like at this point being, I might have tried something different with the crown with this design, but at the end I just didn't like it. So, well, we are getting to the end here, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please leave a comment, like the video, subscribe if you can, and I will see you guys next time for the next part, which is going to be even more exciting because we get into color, if I'm not mistaken. Bye!